Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Uchenna and I'm a Nigerian-based digital content creator and bookstagrammer. And to my OGs, thank you for always coming back. Before I get into today's video, please, if you're yet to subscribe to the channel, please do click the subscribe button and also tell a friend that are interested in books that this is the right channel for them. Today's video is all about the books I've read so far this year and how I felt about them. This is like a proper media review which I was looking forward to filming at the starting of June, but life happened and it was beyond my control, so I wasn't able to film any video. But we are here now, so let's get into it. At the beginning of this year, I set up a reading challenge with a goal of reading 50 books. It felt kind of small, but that was the pace I wanted. You know, just go with the flow, no pressure. And I had a reading challenge that I was participating in. Surprisingly, I've been able to meet up with that goal halfway through the year, and I don't know if I want to increase it again. That doesn't mean that I'm not reading any book at the moment or that I'm going to stop reading for the year. No. So into the 50 books, I would first of all talk about the mood, which are emotional, funny, light-headed, challenging, and reflective. And honestly, thinking about it now, these moods are correct. Moving on to the pace, 70% were medium, 13% were fast, and for the page numbers, less than 300 pages, 47%, 300 to 499 pages, 51%, 500 plus pages at 2%. On the category part, 71 are fiction, while 29 are non-fiction. For the genre, ranking my top 5, I have the LGBTQ plus books, contemporary fiction, YA, memoirs, and literary fiction. Now, without further ado, let's get into the books. Before starting, the order in which I'm taking this is from my least favorites to my top favorites. First on my list is the 2 to 2.5 star category. We have The Miseducation of Obi Ifeanyi. This book, I did like a real review of it on my Instagram, and the premises of this book isn't new to me. This book basically gives us the story of Nigerians basically living their life in America during the period of the re-election of the former President Barack Obama in 2012. Now, the issue I have with this book is the characters. For me, characters play a huge impact on how I read books. Characters in this book had a lot of unlearning and relearning to do. At first, I thought it was only the male characters because they were on another level with their behavior. But then, it turns out that even the female characters too in this book also had some relearning and relearning to do too. I can vividly remember a part where a male character said something like all women had bipolar. Like, I know it's fiction, but really? Anyways, this is a 2-star rating for me. The next book, Lagos to London. This book is basically about 2 Nigerians seeking greener pastures outside the country. And I understand what the author was trying to do with this book, but it felt really unreal. Like, it was not real, it was not realistic. If it was that easy leaving the country, what are we still doing here? Like, what are we still doing here? By now, I would have been in UK or US, yes. Anyways, it's a 2-star rating for me also. So, moving into the next book on my list, I have She Ready. Now, this book, I basically don't know why this book exists. Like, why? Because this book is like an extracted part from the author's main book, The Last Black Unicorn. This is a comedy book, but I honestly did not see the need for this book, so it's a 2.5 star rating. Yes. The 4th book is There Is No Planet B. This book basically gives us the rules of living a healthy life and maintaining a friendly ecosystem that is sustainable for humans. I just felt the book was doing too much, so it's a 2.5 star, and that's on period. On to the next book, 5 Tuesdays in Winter. This is a collection of short stories that is not memorable at all for me. Like, I could remember I enjoyed some few stories in the collection. It felt like one of those books that makes you feel uncertain when it comes to reading short stories. So it's a 2.5 star rating for me. Moving to the 3-star category, which some people would come for me if they watch this video, but it is what it is. So the first on my list on the 3-star category is Bitter. This book is a queer YA, which I didn't really feel any personal connection. It was good, but it was just there. I have a full review on my YouTube, you can check my other videos on the book category, and you're going to see a full review on this book. Next is Mona at Sea. This book is a coming of age story about a young lady facing midlife crisis while navigating family, friends, society, and everyday living. The description of this book says it's a witty and sharp read, but that was not the case for me. The one thing I like about this book is how it was relatable to me, like my own personal life, and I like it, but it was just me. I give it a 3.5 star rating. The next book on my list is Lemon. Now this book is an Asian literature with mystery vibes, but it wasn't memorable. Now when I talk about books being memorable, I mean like books that have impact in my life, like that even when I don't remember the whole plot, the whole storyline and everything, I always have that feeling of what the book did to me. Sometimes it can be happy and then sad and then, like, it depends on the book, but that is what I mean by memorable. Like, it stays with me, the impact of that book stays with me. So on this 3-star rating, the books for me, they were not, it's not books that stayed with me or that would continue to stay with me. And that being said, I have the next, which is The Strange Library. Now this book is also Asian literature, but it was short, like really short for me, and it was somehow like it was weird at the same time too. So I just like, okay, not really bad, but it was not great. That's how I felt about the book, so a 3-star rating for me. Next I have is Rain Can Never Know. Now this book, I've read the author's first book, which is Mechanics of Yenegua, and I enjoyed it because it was just fun, it was a light read, and I was looking forward to his new book, because I felt, you know, the more a writer writes, the better his, her, or their experience. In this case of Rain Can Never Know, that was not it. It felt like a complete Nollywood drama, like this African magic movie. That was how this book felt. Next is The Donald Trap. This is a romance book, and I can recall the whole storyline that happened in this book, but it was not that memorable. Like, I enjoyed it, it was not bad, but it was not great. So it's a 3-star rating for me. On to the next, Ruby Fruit Jungle. This book, I could vividly remember I was pissed off with the character, one of the main characters, like why she did what she did. Just like in the case of where you have a goal and you know where you're going, and you know that what you're about to do will actually tarnish your plans on reaching that goal, and you still go ahead to do that. Like, why don't you just stick with your goals? Like, your goals, yes, focus, but the main character was not focused in this book. But I enjoyed it, it was nice, but it was not memorable. It was just there, and that was it. Moving forward, In Every Mirror She's Black. Now this book is one of it's very popular on Bookstagram. I remember the first time I saw this book, it was the cover was given. I was opportune to get a gifted copy from the publisher, and I read the book, and what I could think of is I want African American authors to do better. Like, their book these days are starting to feel somehow for me. Like, I want them to do better with their description of things, and that was the issue of this book. It was the lives. It gives us basically a story of 3 women navigating their lives in Sweden. So I enjoyed, not like I really enjoyed it, but it was not that bad. But at the same time, it was not giving what it's supposed to give. The cover was giving more than the story itself. Next is Black Girls Must Die Exhausted. This book, I don't know how I felt about this book, honestly. It was not bad. At the same time, it was not good. It has an agenda, but the agenda was not properly executed in this book. That's one of the reasons that I didn't have any, after finishing this one, I didn't have any interest in reading the second book. It has a book 2, and I don't know, I don't think I would want to read the book 2. So it's a 3-star rating. Next on my list is The Ark This book is a romance book, but it was not just this normal romance book that I do read about. This was different, and I kind of enjoyed it to some points. It was something different from what I normally read in a romance. I don't read much romance book, but the few I've read, this was different, and I liked it, but it's not that great. It's not that impactful, so that's why it's among the 3-star categories. We have The Kindred. This is a queer literature, and it was nice because the characters were YA characters, but it was just there. What I like about this book mostly is the representation, the queer representation in this book. That was one of the things I liked about the book, and also the setting of the book was it was nice within the setting, but it was not impactful, so it's a 3-star rating. Nearly All the Men in Lagos Are Mad is my next book. This book, I haven't read this book since, like, until this year. I think it came out last year, yes. So it's a 3-star rating because the stories were nice, but it was not funny for me. Most people were like, oh my god, the book is funny. Like, reviews I've read back then, it was funny, it's this, but for me it's not funny. It was nice, it was just chaos, and it was giving more of these interjection moments where I'm like, yay, ah, mugbe, all those kind of expressions, and that was what I enjoyed it, but it was a 3-star. It was not bad. Next we have Pride and Prejudice. This book is a classical book, and I didn't really enjoy it. Like, I was like, okay, finally I've read one of Jane Austen, and okay, it was not that bad, but I will not be reading any Jane Austen books again. Moving to the category of the 3.5 stars, first here I have is Ogadima, and this book was good. I enjoyed it. It was an okay read. That's why it's a 3.5 star read. And I would say if you want to read this book and enjoy it, you should get a physical copy. The audiobook of this book was not just the pronunciation was trash, so just get a physical book if you'd want to read this book. Next is The Princess Trap. This was black girl made with a prince kind of vibe book, and it was nice, but it was just there, like interracial relationship. That was basically the whole story of this book, and I enjoyed it, but I expected more because from the author I read her other books, like the Brown Sisters trilogy, and that was a killer for me. So I don't know, I expected more from this, but it was not bad, so it's a 3.5 stars read. Next is The Lesbiana's Guide to Catholic School. This book was nice, I enjoyed it, but it's not memorable because I know I enjoyed this book, but it's not memorable for me. Like, the whole storyline, I cannot remember vividly the whole storyline that happened in this book, but I know that I read it and I didn't have any moment of, please, I want to just drop this book. It was good, it was nice, but it could have been more better. The last book on this category is Calf Con Leche. So this is a queer literature, a queer fiction, and it was basically to young adults trying to save their family restaurants. They were not friends, and situation happened and they had to like work together. Basically, it's an enemy to lovers trope, and the ending was great. At first I was like, okay, let's see where this is going, and getting to the ending, I was just smiling. Like, it was nice, like I enjoyed it at the end of this book, and the cover was giving. The cover was one of the reasons I picked up this book, and then the second reason was because it's a queer book, so I enjoyed it. It's a 3.5 star rating. The next book I have here is Cemetery Boys. This book, it's a queer Latinx fiction, but it was not that properly executed for me. I enjoyed the book, it was nice, but it could have been more better. I remember I had some personal issues with the book, but in all it was good, and it's a 3.75 star for me. Onto the 4-star category, the first I have is Manifesto on Never Giving Up. Reading this book felt like I was getting to know the author more better, and then like appreciating the works she put out there. Like, it was great, it was nice, and it's a memoir, so I enjoyed it. Next is The Firekeeper's Daughter. and it's a great book. It was nice, but it's the first star rating for me. Moving to the next book, which is A Quick and Easy Guide to Asexuality. This book was nice. It was more like a learning. You get to learn and also unlearn when it comes to asexuality, and also in the LGBTQ plus in general. So I enjoyed the book because it's like an eye-opener, and it's a book that I would recommend to not only queer folks, like no matter your sexuality, no matter your orientation. It's a book that I would actually recommend for people to read. Moving on, I have The Recitative, and this book, this is my first time reading a book by this author, and it was great, but it felt short. Like, it felt really short. I wanted more. That was like, I wanted more. Like, why? So I enjoyed it, and it's a 4-star rating. That being said, I have The Blessed Girl. This book, oh my god, this book was nice. The book was basically giving bad bitch securing the bag, you know, focusing on her goals, not caring about what other people are saying about her. That was the vibe this book was giving. The only issue I had was how the author ended the main character's story. Like, why does it have to be that way? It doesn't have to be that way. It can end in a good way. So that was basically how I felt about the book, and that is one of the reasons it's a 4-star read for me. The next on my list is The Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl. I enjoyed this book a lot because it's a memoir, and it felt like, you know, getting to learn about the actress, let me put it that way, the actress life, you know, how growing up and everything like that. And it was nice. I enjoyed it, and it's a 4-star rating. A Quick and Easy Guide to Queer and Trans Identities. This is a 4-star rating, and I highly do recommend for people to read this book because, you know, it's a book that opens you to learning about sexualities, orientation, queerness, and that was one of the reasons I enjoyed this book, and I highly recommend you read the book. Moving on, I have Karamo. One of the cast of Queer Eyes, and this book was nice. It was good. I enjoyed it. Next is Over the Top, which is one of the cast of Queer Eyes, and I enjoyed his story. It was nice. I would recommend, you know, among queer non-fiction books to read. Around the Way Girl, this was nice. I don't have very much things to say about this book, but it was just nice. Listening to the author narrate her book, the experience is on another level. So a 4-star rating for me. You Truly Assumed. This is a YA fiction, and I don't know, I enjoyed the story, but a 4-star rating. It was nice, it was good, and yes. We have Bits of a Little Land. I don't want to relate it with pachinko, but when I see this book, I think about pachinko. This is a historical fiction, and it was just good, although it's not that very memorable, because I just know I enjoyed it as of that moment, but after some time, you know, the experience, I didn't feel it the way it was when I was reading the book. So that's it. It's a 4-star rating. Malibu Rising is the next book, and this book was nice. At first, I listened to the audiobook. I had to stop because it was not given at that moment, and I felt it was a me problem because the author, she's good at what she does. So I gave it some time, and later I picked up the book. I finished it, and I was like, wow, it was interesting, and it's a highly 4-star rating for me. Moving on, I have For Aunties and a Wedding. This book is the book 2 of Die A for Auntie, and Die A for Auntie is one of my favorite books of 2021, like top favorite book of 2021. So I was really happy, you know, when I learned about this book, and I think the month it came out, yes, the month it came out, that was when I read the book on Scrib, and it was nice. It was good, but the first book was more giving than this one. That's why this is a 4-star rating for me. And you have to read the first book first before, you know, for you to really enjoy the second book, because this cannot go, the book, you can't take this as a standalone book and just decide to read book 2. You have to read book 1 if you're interested in reading this book. The next I have here is Radio Silence. Radio Silence is actually It's a queer book. I wasn't expecting it to be this good. I enjoyed the drama that comes with YA. Next I have is Gender Explorer. This book is a queer non-fiction and it's a 4-star rating for me. I won't be saying much about it because I reviewed it, and if you check my the category of books, you would see a video that talks more about the book. Next I have Confession of an Alleged Good Girl. This book was great. It was good, and it's one of those books I wish the younger part of me have read this book, and also it's a book that I wish parents would read because it's more like an eye-opener in training up teenagers. And if you have kids or you have a world you're taking care of, it's actually a book that I recommend for both adults to read too. It's a 4-star rating. On the 4.5 stars category, I have The Last Nomad. This is a non-fiction and it was great, and I enjoyed, like, the author's story was touching. It was nice to see that despite all she went through, she was able to, like, you know, create a path for herself. So that was one of the things I enjoyed about the book. The next on my list is Pleasant View, and this book, it's a 4.75 star rating for me. It's more like a collection of short stories, but at the same time they had a connection together. Like at the end, all the whole stories had a connection together, and it was marvelous to see this kind of writing style. Like the author was able to pull this together. It was given. I'm glad that I get to read this book. It's one of those books that, you know, I'm happy that I read the book, and I recommend you read the book too. Moving on, I have The Last Black Unicorn, and this was raw, this was honest, this was good. That's what I can say. A 4.75 star rating. Next, you got Anything Stronger. This book was nice. It's one of those books that you read, you get to know, like I get to learn about the author's life, and anytime you see a post made by this author in regards to her life, her family, you tend to appreciate it the more because you've learned about, like, you know, it's as if you're part of that family and you know the story behind, like, why everything is the way it is. Onto the 5-star categories, I have first on my list is no other book than Pachinko. This book was everything. It was everything good that you can think of in historical fiction, and it was heartbreaking. I won't lie. You're like, you know, this moment you're like, oh, why? Oh God, why? This is like one of those books, and it was great. It was nice reading this book. Like, I enjoyed the whole family history. I enjoyed the whole story and how it progressed. I enjoyed the ending. I had no issue with the book, and it's a purely 5/5-star rating. Next I have is Finding Me. This book it's a memoir, but it's one of the best memoir I've ever read in my life. Like, this is how you write a story. This is how you write a non-fiction book. The author gave everything this book is supposed to. This book was hitting close to home, and I loved it. Like, it's also those moments you tend to, like, from now on, the respect, I have respect for this for Viola, but at this point the respect it's above my head. Like, that's the level of respect I have for her, because this was a beautiful masterpiece, and I do recommend you get this book. The next I have here is Unprotected, a memoir, and this is a 5-star rating for me because I enjoyed every bit of the story. I enjoyed his journey towards life and getting to where he is right now. It's one of those black queer stories that you would be glad you have read, and you'll be glad that it exists. The next book I have on the 5-star category is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This book was mad. I was blown away. At first I wasn't expecting anything. I had no expectation for this book because I've not read anything about the author, and I had no interest in reading the author's book. Well, I read this book due to Heartstopper series when I watched the series. So it's one of the books that Isaac read in the series, and I read the book, and I am so glad I read this book. Next is Don't Cry For Me. This is a fiction, and it's basically like a father that is on his dying bed and he's writing a letter to his son. this was touching. This was like, I felt all the emotions. When you talk about a book is emotional, this is one of those books. My heart felt it. This book did me things, and it's one of the books that I didn't even know how I was like, I'm going to write a review, because I was thinking of putting out a review on Instagram, but I haven't, because I don't even know how to process my thoughts about this whole book. It's a book that I would want people to read, and I totally love it. 5 over 5, no two ways about it. The last book on my list is Honor. This book, it was as if the story is unbelievable. You know those moments where you think you have read like crazy stories, but then you now encounter another crazy story, and that was the case of this book. This book was sad. Like, I think I was at the verge of crying, because what, at some point I felt, please, I don't care if this is fiction, this is too touching, this is so sad. And it's a 5 over 5 because I enjoyed the book, even though it broke me, but I completely enjoyed reading this book. So guys, we have come to the end of this video, and I would love to know your take on these books. Have you read any of them? Is there fab among them? I'm just curious. Please let me know in the comment section what you think. Thank you for watching this video to this point. I really do appreciate. And please, if you're yet to subscribe, please do hit the subscribe button, and I would see you in my next video. Bye.